We are back, Mondays with Matt. It is Monday, and we're here with Matt Marchand. Matt is running for election for Ward 4 here in Windsor, which is extremely exciting. Are you excited about it?
I'm very excited about it, yeah.
It is very cool. This is nice to do this kind of thing, just to be able to ask you questions, talk about the things that you're passionate about, the things that you have put together, the platforms that you've put together, things that are in place, which is, as I can see, the second in the series of platform components is here, and people can access it online.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
VoteMarchand.com.
At VoteMarchand.com, that's right.
This one's dealing with crime prevention and safety strategies. And again, that is available for anybody that's watching this video to go through and pick up and read on their own.
That's right.
As a resident of Ward 4, it is something that really, the idea of dealing with crime and crime prevention is certainly at the forefront of my mind. Are you finding that as you're talking to people?
Absolutely. We've knocked on over 1,500 doors as of right now, and it's coming up all the time. And it doesn't matter which part of the ward you're in. So if you're, in Walkerville, you're in South Walkerville, you're in the Wyandotte Street area, you're further on the west side of the ward, it's coming up constantly as an issue. So our campaign undertook, some comprehensive research to look at what is it that we can do to reduce crime, recognizing, of course, that, budgets are not unlimited. And we've come up with about 12 to 15 recommendations. We'll talk about a few today. But we looked at police forces and policing in general throughout Canada and the United States and pulled out some ideas that we think may have some applicability to reduce crime, to help our residents, more safety, all these things that the Ward 4 residents are certainly talking about.
I was going to say, what are some of the things that are coming up in your conversations as you're going door to door?
Certainly the whole safety issue, crime, property crime, break-ins, a general feeling of often feeling unsafe in certain areas. Memorial Park certainly comes up. Sort of Wyandotte Avenue from time to time comes up from some of the business owners. So we're looking at sort of a comprehensive strategy, again, to put more police on the streets, reduce crime, and sort of have all that sort of better off for livability purposes, so people can feel safer and know that the police are out there, and our police officers are doing a great job. I know we're going to talk about a lot of the strains and stresses that they're under, trying to deliver service to our community, and certainly hats off for all that they're doing, because we know they're under tremendous amounts of pressure and stress.
What are some of the stresses and things that you find that the Windsor Police are under that they're dealing with on a daily basis?
Well, we looked at it's not a Windsor Police phenomenon necessarily, Ryan. It's around North America. We looked at police forces, and we looked at reports from the OPP. We looked at reports from the British Columbia Legislature. We've had comments from the Ottawa Police Department. The issue of mental health impacting officers is really coming to the forefront in the past number of years. And there's a recent report by the Auditor General of Ontario suggesting that 25% of the OPP force is certainly under some sort of accommodative duty because of the fact that a lot of these officers are suffering from stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and other, injuries and other things. So there's all sorts of stresses on police officers, not just physical, which their physicality is at risk on a constant basis, but you layer on top of that the mental health stress piece. And our officers are certainly under a lot of pressure. And I would only add that in the report, from British Columbia, is interesting. It just came out in April of this year. The average police officer over a 20-year period faces 800 critical incidences.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know you have friends on the police force as well. So it may not be a surprise to you, Ryan, but to many other folks. It's a big deal. The average person like me and you may see 3 in our lifetime, right. And officers are seeing 800 over a 20-year period. So that's a tremendous amount of stress and strain. So a lot of officers, particularly on the front line that are dealing with this, sometimes they have to go on stress leave and due to PTSD and other things, and that's fine and that's great, and they need the help that we can get. We need to support them. The other side of that, of course, is that there's few officers now on the front line carrying a bigger load. So we're talking about, at least in our platform, some ideas to get the officers the help they need as soon as, because they want to come back. We've interviewed some, and they want to come back. They want to participate. They want to get back to what they were doing. Are there ways to help them offset some of the load that's placed on the existing officers now?
Okay. I mean, several years ago, I was involved in an incident where the police were involved, and we were trying to kind of assist the family to kind of get through some things. It was quite a few years ago, but I remember at the time being fascinated and surprised by how much time the police spend from the time of the place of the incident to the hospital. There was some mental health issues happening there.
That's right. If they're in the hospital on a mental health act call, there's a certain amount of time that they're required to stay there. And I think we've made some progress in sort of getting that. So hats off to the folks in the hospital and the police and so forth for getting that time down. Is there opportunity to get that time even down more to get officers back? Maybe we should have a look at that, benchmark it, and so forth. But having officers, responding for calls for service when they're distracted and have to do other things. That's what we're trying to do, is how do we get officers focused on getting them focused on the stuff that they need to focus on, and rather than a lot of the legislative requirements that they have to do in terms of the Canadian Mental Health Act and others. So that way we can have more police on the streets and responding to people in Ward 4, but obviously across the city.
I've had to be more proactive myself as far as like getting motion sensor lighting and doing those kind of things. I've been getting tips from friends and that kind of stuff. Are there preventative measures? I mean, the crime prevention is kind of the name of the platform here. What type of prevention measures are available to, maybe sidestep or get ahead of the?
Yeah, there are a thing called crime prevention through environmental design. Okay. That's kind of a bit of a mouthful, but basically you can call your local law enforcement agency, in our case with the Windsor Police, and ask them to do an audit. And they come to your house and do, you need lights here, these bushes need to be trimmed there. Like, what can we do? This is, again, another way to reduce calls for service. This, again, the whole police thing and crime, it's all connected. So if we can offset officer time here doing something, that means there's more time over here to do more, something that's could be more important, right? So by having these, walks through, find out exactly what's going on in your neighborhood. I know they had one in Leamington recently, but the OPP had one of those. These are some of the things that we can do to assist the police. Mm-hmm. Maybe it makes, this neighborhood or that neighborhood less likely to attract crime. And that frees up officers to go into another area because they get fewer calls for service. And the fewer calls for service you have, the costs go down and allows them to concentrate, on other, what I would describe, hotspot areas.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things too, when I was reading through about environmental design and how that affects or could affect crime or reduce crime. I thought it was, as you said, it was a mouthful, but then when I started to get into it and the way you explain it, the idea is that they can look at your yard and say, okay, that hedge is too high, let's see if you can cut that down. So I mean, just kind of putting it into those words made it a whole lot easier to understand.
Yeah, and maybe it's your back patio door. Maybe it's you got too many bushes at the front. All these things. Maybe sometimes you're not bringing the mail when you should. So all these things that collectively, as a group, if we do that, we can again lower the amount of calls for service over time and allow the police, who have a lot of very busy, one less call that they have to respond to. That's less cost on our taxpayers, and of course, that's more time they can dedicate to dealing with more serious matters.
Okay. Well, I see in here there was a discussion of the crime hotspots. Right. What exactly are those?
Well, this is something new that's evolving, and our campaign looked at this, and we looked at evolving police ways to, again, put resources in the places where they need to be. And oftentimes for many decades, you were the XYZ police force, you covered this, square rectangle, that was your area. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of good reasons to do that. But a lot of the evidence and data coming out, and it's in our report, is hotspot policing, where you concentrate on micro geographic areas. Like, this area is a problem. And you dedicate, say, 15, and the study just out of Sacramento, California, you put a police presence there for some period of time. 15 minutes to 20 minutes in the Sacramento study seemed to be the sweet spot. Just having a police officer or a car, or however you want to do it, a presence, reduced crime and sort of bad things happening by a significant percentage. And you don't have to be there all night or all afternoon or whatever. You can be there for a period of time. You can go to another hotspot and do the same thing. And just sort of have that presence. People are more comfortable. Because they see, there's an officer in the area or officers in the area. We just saw him yesterday. We just saw him, a few hours ago. And you multiply that across, and then again, you get that reduced calls for service, allows officers to dedicate their time to urgent matters, and overall better for the community, right?
As a resident, as a homeowner, just to be able to see that presence seems like it would make
It's coming
a
up
huge difference.
Yeah, it's coming up the door. I know I've heard it, and again, folks are very kind towards the police. They know they're under tremendous pressure. They know they've got a lot of calls for service to do. But I do hear that we haven't seen an officer here in a while, and this and that. So I think the hotspot idea is something. I think the Windsor Police and other police services are actively looking at this. It's really the data on. There's a really metadata analysis done on it. That's kind of a fancy word for study of studies, if you will. And this seems to be a very interesting way to approach. Not all policing, of course, but certainly elements of policing, and we'll let our experts down at our police headquarters sort of look at that. If I'm sure they're already on it. But just get that conversation out into the community by having that presence. Just the presence alone is reassuring to residents.
Right. Are there any other cities that have implemented some of the measures that you've looked at?
Yeah, again, we looked at the metadata. Numerous cities have done it, and there's studies across Canada, the United States over the past, say, 10 years. It's really kind of crept up. Okay. And it's kind of into this, it's called POP, problem-oriented policing. It's something that I know Windsor Police has been engaged in since 2018, which is a very good thing. It's very helpful. And this sort of very complementary to that. But again, it gets back to the whole thing of freeing up officers to be able to do the hotspot policing, to be able to do POP, to be able to do all these things in the context of all the issues that they have in terms of retention and the mental health issue, getting officers back who want to be back, but they need a certain time to get care, because our officers are under tremendous pressure these days. As we just talked, 800 incidences over a life. You and I face 1, 2, or 3. Right. And we need to be mindful and respectful of that.
Combined with the fact that I believe that property crimes have increased 5%.
Yeah, the WPS data had that out recently in their annual reports, that the property crime is up by 5%. I think crimes against people, I think, is down, which is helpful. I think it's a good thing, obviously. But again, this is coming up at the door too. So the statistics that law enforcement is putting out is kind of matching what I'm hearing at the door. Right. And I think that we have opportunity now to look at some of the metadata and sort of put out some ideas. Again, we have 15. We're going to talk about 2 or 3 today, but there's a whole bunch in the deep dive in our report.
Okay. You talk about the possibility of implementing more lighting or using more lighting. What suggestions or ideas do you have in your platform?
Yeah, lighting is important. You put lights on, especially at night, things tend not to happen, right? And I know City Council passed a resolution to this alley fund, which is a great idea, where residents chip in to put lighting in the alley, and that's a great idea, and we should be doing that, and congratulations to City Council for doing that. The other thing that our campaign is talking about is there an opportunity for the city to go first and say, well, let's pilot project 5 or 10 of these alley projects first, so that people can see the results. We put 10 here or 5 here or whatever the number is, and say, look, we put these lights in. Here's the measure. I'm big on measuring. You want to get the metrics, right? You want to find out, we put the lights in here. Here's what the cost was. Here's what the benefit was. The calls for service went down, or however the calls went, and then we tweak it. And by having some data first, then we can sort of tweak. Do we need more lights? Was there too many? Was the cost? So you want to go through and really rigorously scrub the investment. What did we do right? I talk about this all the time. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? How do we improve on it? And by getting these pilot projects going and getting neighborhoods involved, congratulations to City Council for getting that forward. I think it's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to accelerate that? Hopefully, yes. I would argue there is. And is there a way for the city to to go first and take a little more of a leadership role and say, hey, listen, we've consulted with the police. These are the 5 area hotspots and alleys, or however they measure it. We're going to go first, put it in, measure the results, and then the community can carry on from there.
Now, you mentioned prevention walks. What exactly is that?
Great question. I think something that a lot of neighborhoods can do. They engage the police force, in our case, the WPS, Windsor Police Service. And you have a little walk around your neighborhood. You get the neighbors involved. You say this area is something we should look at. We need to cut the trees here. We need to reduce the bushes there. All these little things that the neighbors can do to come together, again, to help the police because if we help them, they're in a better position to help us. So it's really a team effort, really. It's not, I mean, we want to do what we can to make their job easier. So when we call them, there's not 10 calls for service in front of them, right? So if we can reduce that to 5 or 6 or 4 or whatever, we're making progress, or we're cutting their workload.
Right. Okay. And everything that you've talked about can be found in the document here, which is available at votemarchand.com.
We spent a lot of time on that effort. We interviewed police officers. We talked to many people involved in this. Did a lot of research on it. So we think it's it's a quality piece of work, and it's good for our community to at least put this out there in terms of getting into the debate about how do we respond to the residents' concerns, particularly about crime, property crime, and things of that nature in general. And again, it doesn't matter which part of the ward, it's coming up everywhere. Each area has, again, certain hotspots, Memorial Park at times and one, and again, to go through the list of areas as well. So we think this is a great start. We think it's some interesting ideas to help, again, within existing cost envelopes. And
I mean, crime prevention itself is such a complex issue. The ability to take such a complex issue and break it down and make it and put it in a format such as this that you can easily go through. You can actually see some of Matt's ideas, some of the plans that he has once he's elected. This is where you're going to find it, at votemarchand.com. Matt, thanks again for getting together.
Ryan, it's my pleasure. Great seeing you.
I'll see you next Monday.
100%.
Okay, sounds good. Great.